Welcome everyone. With 0.3.1 having been deployed, I just wanted to do a quick video sharing some of my first impressions, as well as sharing some potential tips and brainstorming what could potentially be shakeups in the tablet meta going forward with the changes. So I've written up a little summary list here, so feel free to pause and read through it yourself, but I'll go over each point very quickly and share some of my insights into what I've seen thus far throughout half the day so far today. So the very first thing that is worth highlighting is that the tablets have not been retroactively updated to the new value ranges. So you can see here I've got 3 old tablets. And for instance, if I expand the info, and you can see here pack size in maps originally was 3%, and the new range is 4 to 10. So it has not been proportionally been updated with the new ranges. So any existing tablets you have, be careful. I actually saved a few 7% quant and high and max rolled rarity tablets, which are now effectively, as they stand, useless. You have 2 ways of dealing with this. The very first is you can use the reforging bench. So you can take 3 existing tablets of the same type, reforge, and you'll get a new tablet which will roll with the new ranges. So for instance here, rarity of items found in maps, 27 out of 30, not bad. Secondly, for a little tip here, what you can do is for very high value modifier combos, and this will very much depend on the meta and what people discover as being the best combinations. What you can do is you can keep your existing tablets with those 2 combinations of prefix and suffix that are desirable, and you can actually use a divine to re-roll those values into the new ranges. Now, the reason I say this is only really an option for high value combinations because using divines on tablets is quite costly, especially some of these ranges have got quite a high variance or high range. So you'd really only be wanting to do this on tablets which prove to be quite expensive if you were looking for them through trade. So for instance here, I am very eager to test out a essence farming combo, and number of rare monsters and increased chance to contain essences is a combination which I really wanted, and they're actually quite expensive already. There is an initial demand with the new patch going out, which I'd imagine may potentially stabilize or may not, but currently these are already going for 2-3 plus divs each, at least at the time of recording. And what you'll actually notice on the existing tablets is the new maximum amount of attempts. I believe in the initial reveal or preview of the patch, they said there was going to be 18, but it's actually be 10. But your existing tablets can have an amount of uses remaining up to 18. So what you can potentially get is a high value combination, which actually has a number of attempts higher than what the new maximum is. And you roll a divine into the new ranges, and you actually have more uses on that tablet. So using the divines may be justified in this case. So they're your 2 options, reforge or divine. Your existing tablets, as they stand by themselves, the existing tablets with the value ranges are just pretty much useless. They're typically below the minimum rolls of the new ranges. Next point is, if you look at a new section of the map, all of the icons have been removed except for powerful bosses, cleansed, things like hideout. So mostly the map has been cleaned, but and I imagine this applies to most people, any existing tablet applications that you've had in your towers remain, so you'll still get a lot of clutter in and icons visible where you've had tower setups before. I preemptively, at least, I'm not a big fan of the old method of having to juice towers, but I did happen to have a 3-tower overlap, and just on the off chance that this happened, which actually has, is the existing applications remaining, I did set up my 3 towers, and sure enough, all the quantity and all the application of the tablets in these towers pre-existingly have been retained. What this means is, and I imagine there's been quite a few, especially top-end players, who have completely juiced up their atlases, and now anyone that has done this will get effectively a double dip into having the existing tower tablets applied to, as well as any new tablets that they've placed in will also get applied. So you get a double dip. Big advantage for the players that did prepare, but this late into the season and to the league, probably a minimal impact, although the impact on the economy with the massive influx of currencies will probably be felt, especially in top-end items. Next, a nice quality of life, which I was hoping for when I first heard about the change. I was a little bit worried. It may seem minimal, but that every time that you jump between a map, you would have to take out the tablets from the existing map once you've completed it and reapply it to the new one. It's not the case. It remembers your previous selections and just carries it forward. So you can see here, if I'm clicking on a new map, the UI to put in your waystone, it actually remembers the last 3 tablets I've used. So nice little bit of quality of life there. It would potentially be nice to see in the future, potentially move this just to be always visible at the top of your UI over your atlas, potentially, so you could always just quickly see what tablets you have applied, potentially even with a selector to maybe even have different tablet combos, maybe an XP set, a gold set, a rarity set, an essence set, and you could just be able to quickly switch between those kind of predefined sets that you've got. But either way, at least it remembers your existing tablets and moves them over to their new maps, and you don't have to reapply them. Nice bit of quality of life. One very important thing to highlight, especially for anyone that is used to the existing meta, quantity was very highly desirable. It was pretty much the mandatory modifier for your tablets, getting the maximum 7% and applying that to all your towers. It's worth highlighting that the change to quantity only moved the maximum roll from 7 to 10%, very minimal. If you compare this to, say, the increase in rare monsters went from 15 to 40%. Moving towards potential meta shaping thoughts later on in more depth, but this could potentially have an impact on the meta in terms of what tablets are desirable. Being able to have, say, a 3-tower overlap with about 7 or 8 tablets, depending on whether you use Vision Paradise. The amount of quant you got compared to a different choice, say increased rare monsters at 15, the quant was very much higher value. Now with much more significant increases in things like rare monsters, we may see a shift towards those modifiers being more desirable or rarity. For instance, you could put 3 40% tablets for rare monsters onto a map and get 120% more rare monsters. Most of your loot comes from rare monsters, so having twice as many rare monsters, more so in fact, compared to a maximum of 30% increase in quantity. I'm not an expert into how quant versus rare monsters versus rarity always up, but at least on the surface it feels to me that having 120% more rare monsters is better than 30% quantity. It really depends, you may be farming bosses, in which case rare monster increases obviously don't apply. But there's similar increases in rarity as well of items found. Quantity got one of the lowest increases overall, so be mindful of that. One really nice thing as well that this provides before, if you had, say, as we were looking at before, a 3-tower overlap here, you'd spend all this time investing in setting something like this up. You'd fill it with quantity, for instance, and pretty much all of those applications of those tablets would be fixed. And you really wouldn't ever want to deviate from that. If you needed gold, or you were at the very top end of your leveling, level 96, 7 plus, and really pushing to get that last bit of XP, you really had no options in terms of pivoting on your maps to cater for what you really wanted at that given point in time. Now with these tablets, you could go to a new map, don't have to worry about towers or anything, just go to a new map. You could place in 3 extra experience tablets if you're just pushing for that last bit of a level. Say if you're low on gold and wanting to respec, or you're doing a lot of crafting or trading, which is a massive gold sink, and you're running low on gold. I know a lot of people have constantly, you can see here, I've got a whole bunch of Omen and Barrings. I'm always running low on gold. I can just now put in 3 extra increased gold tablets, for instance, let's say, and just farm some gold for a couple of maps, and then move back to my whatever rarity or breach setup or essence setup I may have. So the flexibility this provides is fantastic. One little downside, if I bring up a example of a map, do I bring up the mini map at any point here? Be nice. I actually stopped using the mini map as a result. This is annoying. Don't ever bring. There we go. If you can just see here, not the mini map, but the overlay. The overlay in a map no longer shows the rare monster icons, which very sad about. I know in the preview they mentioned the philosophy of them not wanting people to be just looking and pathing from the little skull icon to skull icon. They wanted a more immersive experience where people are actually looking at what's going on with their character. But the downside of this is ultimately, if you're farming gear, you're still really looking for those rare monsters, and being sure that you've cleared everything or pathing more efficiently from rare pack to rare pack was a much better farming experience. And I know a lot of people were a big fan of having those rare icons. So it's a bit of a jarring experience initially, not being able to see those rare monsters or being even aware, especially if you've got a build which kills things quickly. You're not even aware of whether you're killing rare mobs. So, bit of a downside. The new powerful map bosses. So, if we can just find an icon, new maps which now have the boss icon, which now have powerful map bosses. These bosses are actually quite powerful. I think I may have faced one at the end here. You can kind of see here above the health bar the amount of health these bosses actually have. So I'm still carrying over a mapping optimized build, which really doesn't have a lot of single target damage. I've capped my demon form at 10 just purely for mapping, for a bit of extra defensive layers which I can focus on. And you can see here these powerful map bosses take a while if you don't have a build optimized for single target. I think this map may have had 40% extra monster life as well, but you can see here had about 12 million HP, the map boss, and also as I was playing around and testing out things today, still carrying over the non-single target build that I had. My build runs with about 8,000 EHP plus the resistances. I can typically take most one-shots, tank most one-shots and survive, but there was an actual map where I faced one of these powerful map bosses and it completely one-shot me through the whole 8,000 EHP plus. So be mindful of that. The new powerful map bosses are actually quite powerful, especially if you've got juiced maps, which may increase their crit, their damage, their life, etc. The Visions of Paradise map, tablet, I think I may still have an existing one, only has one use, and what it does now is rather than removing irradiation, it adds it. So having that second use of a map is done it's done in the inverse method pretty much. You run the map, pardon me, without irradiation, and then you can run it again with irradiation. I believe that's how it works. I haven't tested it out, I've only got one. And it's only got one use, so I'd imagine what the typical use case now for Visions of Paradise, it would be a lot less powerful than it used to be, but it would still have good value on something like, say, Jade Isles, which is a unique boss map, which is used to farm Rakiatis Flow, which is a very expensive lineage support. So to have a double chance of getting that expensive support gem, that may still be a use case for Visions of Paradise in that respect. Inflation, deflation, there's definitely going to be some impacts onto the economy, the trade economy, as a result of these changes. Before you'd only typically have top end and min-max players really going for 3-4 tower overlaps and really juicing maps and getting all this currency as a result. Now it's become a lot more accessible. Pretty much everyone, even with a mid-tier roll, 3 combo tablets, can get absolutely juiced maps going. So there's going to be a massive influx of currency, I suspect, which will have impacts on the economy. So that's pretty much it in terms of first impressions. In terms of potential meta shifts, as I said, quantity feels like it's diminished in value, and there may be shifts more towards increase in rares or increase in rarity of items found. For instance, what you saw here, I actually, just to slowly go over it, just a standard map. So this is in a pre-existing juiced tower map. This is a new map, bare bones, so what would reflect probably a typical experience going forward, especially once the new league starts in 0.4. But semi-decent waystone, and not even great rolls here, but 30% extra rare monsters, 38%, 33%. Then once I got into the map, I believe, got the 20% from the Atlas double up from tablets. And you can see here, this map is running with 400+% increase in rare monsters. And what you see as a result, if I jump ahead, I open up a breach, I think pretty soon. I have a very top-end computer and rarely get massive FPS lag running on all those settings, and my computer is struggling. The amount of density and rare monsters you get from a breach is absolutely insane. So whether this is something that will become sought after or meta is, like I said, I'll leave it to the juicers and the experts in this field. Well, watch YouTube. I'm sure there'll be plenty of videos coming up in the next few days as to what people are recommending as the best setups. But this, at least as an initial first impression, seems ridiculously good. It would probably rely on your character itself having a decent amount of increased rarity of items found. I run, I think, on this particular setup about 166%. I can get up to 250. Apparently, from people who have tested, the sweet spot is 150. So, you know, it really depends on what your character itself is running, but like I said, first impressions are that increased amount of rare monsters in combination with Breach is a very strong combination. Another potential combo, which I will probably be testing next, is an Essence setup. So Essence setups have existingly been quite strong as is, and quite sought after. I believe a very popular content creator, XFarmerX, was testing out a certain Essence setup and making 10 divs per hour, or if not more. The movement speed related crafting essences from, I think, Horror and Hysteria are very expensive, and if I bring up my Atlas, you effectively picked up this little branch of increased essence with the chance for double corruption, chance for perfect, and then a 25% chance for modifiers. So using that, as well as, say, for instance, some combination like this is what I'll be leaning towards. So increased rare monsters, map contains 2 additional essences. And the reason I point this out is that map contains 2 additional essences is being buffed. Before, that was just 1 additional essence. So now this combination of essence farming has become even stronger, being able to get 2 additional essences plus 100%. This can roll up to increased chance to contain essences, and again, increased number of rare monsters. And then add a Breach, finally, as I said, so you're still stacking, increased number of rare monsters, bit of extra density from the Breach. A potential other modifier on your tab, I can't remember on which tablet it rolls. 1 additional modifier for rare monsters would be very powerful, especially with the Atlas point here. So that's the other combination which I suspect will be very strong, and there may be others which crop up as well. I imagine increased rarity of items found stacking will be popular as well, but some of these tablet combinations, such as, say, 2 additional essences with rare monsters or increased rarity, these sort of tablets are already going for 2-3 plus divs, and there's very little supply of them. As I said, it will probably stabilize after time. The patch just landed, so there'll be a lot of people running to stock up, and then it'll probably stabilize. But depending on how strong some of these combinations are or prove to be, or don't prove to be, the prices may even go up. These roll ranges can be quite high. For instance, rare monsters 15 to 40. So getting a higher roll is actually more difficult now on tablets. Anyway, that is all. Overall, very happy with the changes. Like I said, just simply from the flexibility point of view and the accessibility point of view, it's just such a positive change. I don't think it's been well documented and very highly vocalized amongst the community, how little people liked having to spend an hour or 2 more looking and setting up tower overlaps. So feels great so far. Just any map, put in 3 even mid-tier tablets, and you're already having a much better experience. So very positive. We'll see how it all pans out in terms of the meta, in terms of what setups are best, but I've shared some of my thoughts on what I think is best. Please leave any comments in terms of your own findings and recommendations for combinations. Share with everyone and have fun out there. Positive change.